and welcome to Symbols and Cynicism, a podcast where we talk about all of the things that I love, some of the things that I hate, and this wacky adventure that we call life. My name is Bob, I'm your host, and I'm glad you're here today for our 50th episode, Star Wars 101, Back to the Basics, and cell phone game nonsense. Let's get started. Welcome back to today's program. Not just any episode of the program, it is our 50th episode. And I'm going to be real honest with you right now. I dreamt that we might make it this far, but I didn't think we actually would. When I proposed, let's start a podcast, bunch of people on board, a lot of positive feedback, but I thought, okay, what are we going to do? Like 6 episodes, 10? How many are we going to go? It'd be nice to go forever. Probably not realistic there. The research said if you can get past 6, you're in good shape. You're probably in it for a while. They said to plan 10 to 20 and go from there. And here we are at 50. And here are some stats from our first 50 episodes. We had 17 Star Wars episodes, 22 music education related episodes, some crossovers in there, and 11 other episodes. Our top 10 lists, our holiday specials, etc. And some of those included some music ed or some Star Wars topics, etc. Our most popular episode, of course, is our trailer episode. It's the first episode, which, by the way, we are redoing that episode. So if you're new to the podcast and you go back and listen to the trailer, it's going to be new. Nothing extraordinarily there. It's like I always think like that pops up every once in a while. Like, hey, somebody downloaded and listened to the trailer. I think, man, the editing was bad. And, we've evolved over the last 50 episodes and that trailer is not really accurate anymore. So we're not doing every episode re-record, but the trailer, since it's out there and the most listened to, we're going to give you a new version of that. We have reached every continent except Antarctica. 3% of our listeners are from Europe, but we have had 20 downloads from Africa, 23 from South America, but Asia is right behind Europe. As far as countries, USA, of course, is the top. Germany is second. Vietnam, surprisingly, not far behind Germany. Now that blows my mind. Vietnam, all time, 50 episodes, we've had 36 downloads from Vietnam. And that seems like a really small number, right? Like only 36, but think about this. That means that 36 individual people from Vietnam listened to one episode, or that one person has listened to 36 episodes or somewhere in between. True. But look, Germany, okay, I have a former student that lives in Germany with his family. Vietnam, I am not aware of anyone I know that lives in Vietnam, which means someone that I do not know found the show, listened to almost the entire run, or 36 individual people just happened to just mind blown. Additionally, Mexico, UK, Japan, Uruguay, Bangladesh, Rwanda, the list goes on. And no, this is not a US listener on vacation in a place like Rwanda because it doesn't track the location of you where you're listening. It tracks the origin of the listener's account. So if you're from Columbus, Ohio, and you go to Rwanda and listen to the episode, it's still going to tell me that you are from Columbus. Of course, look, we aren't doing this for the downloads, but also we sort of are. It does cost money to run a podcast, and if we aren't getting enough downloads and it's not fun anymore, then we'll end the show. And yes, there have been weeks, if we're being perfectly transparent, where we have thought, well, that was a lousy week. Was it worth it? Should we continue doing this? And sometimes we have great weeks, like Rachel Maxwell's middle school band weeks, Jason Robb marching band design weeks, Robert Fisher's interview about interviewing, and we think we made it, we're there, we're past the crest, and then we have a terrible week. Well, was it because it's a holiday and everybody's busy? Is it because it's summer and everybody's busy? Is it because it's, spring contest season and everybody's busy and nobody's listening? Or was it my voice? Was it the topic? Was it the editing? Was it the sound? Do we need new music? We are constantly reflecting on what we can do to make this show better. Why do people listen? What would attract more listeners? What would be more entertaining? So please, if you are a listener, especially if you've listened to, 10 or more episodes, if you have suggestions, send us a message with the link in the description, text the show, and we'll put it on the to be considered list. We got a list of what are we going to change over the next 50. We made it to 50, and we would love to make it to 100 someday and have you right there with us. So please take an opportunity, send us a message. What do you love? What do you dislike? What can we do to make your life better? Okay, episode 50 on with the show. Today we have Star Wars 101, some back to the basics with the guts and roots of Star Wars, and cell phone game nonsense. Bringing in our producer and my sister Kathy. Let's roll. All right, welcome to the show. You've been around. Do we even need to introduce you anymore? It's our producer, it's my sister, it's Kathy. We're talking Star Wars 101 today. Kathy, I think this was your idea. Was it my idea? Whose idea was this?
I think going back to these basics for this Star Wars, and then even the DCI one, I was asking you some questions, and you said, we oughta do this on the pod. So I'm here for it.
Yeah, you're right. It came up in the DCI in a text group. It came up, and then you said we should do that, which we're doing DCI 101. We're going to do that. That's in a couple of weeks. That's on a future episode. We got it planned. Then we decided, well, let's do it on Star Wars 2. And I think it was a good idea to sort of step back into the basics.
Yeah, we've been deep in the woods of Clone Wars on the podcast, right? You've been talking specific episodes, specific story arcs, and I love Clone Wars. Animated Clone Wars is some of our favorite. And you and I are reading the High Republic books. We are deep into those. We've read, 9 or 10 of them, maybe more. I don't know. I've lost count. There's so many of them. But, at the beginning of the podcast, a year ago, you were talking about all the things you love and got to get back to basic Star Wars for that. So, yeah, I've got questions.
Yeah, great. And I love Clone Wars. It's my favorite. I've said that many times. But yeah, it's always good to sort of get back to the roots and just talk Star Wars, the basics. So you came up with this list of questions to kind of throw at me. I will admit, I did have to do a little research for some of these. I kind of got a guess, and then it's like, oh, that's a little bit wrong. So, all right. So first question, fire, shoot them at me.
All right. Always the first question for most people, I think, is there's so much Star Wars. There are 9 main movies. Of course, they came out in order, like episode 4, 5, then 6, then 1, 2, 3, then 7, 8, 9. And that's called release order. But just because they're released that way doesn't mean we have to watch them that way. So my question for you, and I'm pretty sure I asked you this several years ago as I was introducing my kids to Star Wars. The question is, what's your preferred watch order, release order or chronological order?
Right. We just have a whole podcast. That's one question, right? That's all we have to do. And I just get to talk for 45 minutes about the difference between release order and watch order or chronological order, is how we refer to. So if you watch it chronologically, you would watch episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That gives you the story in logical story progression order. Release order starts with the middle third with 4, 5, 6. That was back in the 70s and early 80s, right? 1977 to 1983 was the first 3. And then late 90s, early 2000s, that was episodes 1, 2, 3, which we refer to as the prequels. And then more recently, 7, 8, 9 came out, the mid to late 2000 teens, if you want to look at it that way. And that's the sequel trilogy. What's my preferred watch order? I think it depends on the day. I don't know that I would give you an answer that's always the same answer. Like when people ask me what's my favorite Star Wars movie, the answer is always Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. That never changes. Not in forever, not yet anyway. My preferred watch order, I mean, I can tell you when Harrison was little and he started watching, I started with 4, 5, 6. I started him on the original trilogy, A New Hope, and so forth, which was originally called just Star Wars. It was not A New Hope originally. It was just called Star Wars because, of course, George Lucas had this like long, complicated story, which he told one piece of. He didn't know that he was going to be able to tell the whole story. So when somebody comes to me and says, well, where should I start? I almost always say A New Hope, Episode 4, 1977. The reason is like it's the beginning, it's the main characters, it's the introduction. Yeah, it feels like you're being let into the middle of a story because you are, but it is the introduction to all the basic characters, all the basic plot points. You got to go in though knowing that you're watching a movie from 1977. I mean, even though it was updated in the 90s as far as sort of a digital remake, but it's still, I mean, it's an old movie. It moves at the pace of a 1977 movie. Its graphics and storytelling is 1977, so you're not watching a current paced edited movie. You are watching an old movie, but I think 4, 5, 6 is the way to go. Now, there is also, in addition to release order and chronological or story order, there is this really cool thing called the machete order. Have you heard of the machete order?
I have heard of it. I do not know the order to watch them in to follow that.
So it's a really pretty interesting concept. And I don't think I would do this like on my first watch through, but it is kind of interesting. So what you do is you start with episode 4 and you watch 4 and 5, which gets you, spoiler alert, right up to I am your father, where the big
Mhm.
reveal, like Vader is Luke's father. So you watch 4, 5, and then go back to 1, 2, 3, so that 1, 2, and 3 are basically a flashback from I am your father. And then
Okay.
go to 6 and finish 6, which is then the conclusion to the flashback, which, I mean, obviously it would be
Okay.
jarring from a filmmaking, digital CGI standpoint. It would be very jarring because you're going from a movie made in 2000 roughly, or excuse me, movie made in like 1982 to a movie made in 99, 2000, etc., then back to the 80s. So, but I don't know, it's kind of a cool, for me, when we have done rewatches, having already known the entire story, I watch chronologically just because it's the story straight on through.
Okay. I kind of prefer watching in release order. I kind of like movie editing way, like watching the 70s and 80s version first so that it's not like a weird drag to get to that in the middle. So,
The reason he didn't tell the 1, 2, 3 first, George Lucas referring to, is because, I mean, there's a lot of trade federation and pre-war talks and ambassador
mhm.
stuff and, you know, just political stuff. It's not, there is action, but it's not as action sci-fi based as episodes 4, 5, 6. There's less blowy uppy stuff in 1, 2, 3. So 4, 5, 6 is a good place to start.
Cool. So a new person, brand new to Star Wars, you would have them start in 4.
I would, but look, there's no wrong way to watch Star Wars. I mean, it's like pizza, right? Like, do you eat the pizza from the point, or do you eat it from the crust, or what if it's square? Do you eat the? There's no wrong way. I mean, pizza is still pizza. Star Wars is still Star Wars. So watch it however you want.
Yeah. All right, let's talk time as it happens in the movies. So time lapses in the movies. So how much time takes place during movies 1, 2, and 3? And by 1, 2, and 3, I mean 1, 2, and 3, the prequels. So how much time happens in those 3 movies?
So the first thing, if you're going to start dissecting Star Wars timelines, is to realize that they don't always make sense. there isn't always a logical, like, well, but how come it looks like Obi-Wan only aged, 30 years, even though there's only been 10 years of story, etc. And there's ways to talk around that, like, well, the sands of Tatooine would make you appear to age faster or whatever. So your question is how much time from the beginning of episode 1, and we can parse this out. So at the beginning of episode 1, Anakin is he's 8 or 9 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of it, at the end of the prequels, right, he is about 20. So we're looking at about 12, 13-ish years. And of course, in the galaxy far, far away, they don't really celebrate birthdays. And other than small allusions to like Yoda being 900 years old, they don't really talk about long lengths of time in specifics, which is why it's pretty tough to tell. But basically, the prequel era movies span about 13-ish years.
All right. Now, what about the 4, 5, and 6, the original Star Wars trilogy?
Right. So in the original trilogy, and again, the beginning, which is A New Hope. Of course, at the end of A New Hope is when the first Death Star blows up, and that's what we refer to as the Battle of Yavin, which is where that Death Star is when it explodes. And that battle is referred to as the Battle of Yavin. And in the Star Wars universe, that is a significant marking point. And we refer to anything that happened before that point as BBY, before the Battle of Yavin, and anything after it is ABY, after the Battle of Yavin. Sort of think of it like before Christ and after Christ, right? Like that's year 0 in the Star Wars universe. The Battle of Yavin is year 0. So if that is year 0, and we know approximately how old Luke and Leia are and the time that passes, it's about 6 years, 5 or 6-ish, from the beginning of episode 4 to the end of episode 6. So the second Death Star at the end of Return of the Jedi gets destroyed in ABY year 5.
So 7, 8, and 9, the newer sequel movies, feel to me like they happen much more quickly. The characters kind of seem to stay roughly the same age. Is that true?
Yeah, 100%. It's only about a year, maybe a little more than a year, from the beginning of 7 to the end of 9. Yeah, about a year-ish.
Okay. So how much time takes place from the beginning of episode 1 to the end of episode 9, between Anakin being a child, like a little 8 or 9-year-old, and the end of episode 9? How much time has happened? I mean, we've had generations, so how much time has evolved?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is all generalistic, but we know that the prequel trilogy is about 13, 15 years. We know that there is about 20 between the prequels and the original, because Luke and Leia are born at the end of the prequels, and they're about 19-ish or 20-ish at the beginning of the original trilogy. The tricky one is how much time elapses between the end of the originals and the beginning of the sequels. And there's about 30-year gap there. So from the beginning to the end is somewhere between 65 and 70 years. So the entire story could take place in one earthbound human lifetime very reasonably, right? I mean, 70 years is obviously not an unreasonable length of time for somebody to live in our universe, which, so you look at like the prequels are 15 years, let's say, then there's 20-year gap, and then 6 years for the original trilogy, a 30-year gap, and then 1 year for the sequels, which is why, and I know we're sticking to the basics here, but that's why we're now getting all of the inner stories, right? Like we get Rogue One and Andor and the Thrawn books and Ahsoka, the newest Ahsoka seasons are those are the, interstitial space, like what connected the gap between the end of Revenge of the Sith and the beginning of A New Hope. That's where a ton of our stories have taken place. Rebels, Andor, the Obi-Wan series,
Mhm.
like it's Solo, a Star Wars movie. All of these stories are taking place in that span of time, which is, I don't know, that's really cool to me.
Yeah, and we've talked before about how much we love that like Rogue One connects to A New Hope right there at the end, and they've kind of they've tried to connect the dots for us.
I mean, if you're old enough, and it doesn't have to be Star Wars, any movie that like really engage, Harry Potter's another great example of this. Like you watch the
Hmm.
first chunk of 8 movies or read the 7 books before there was all the ancillary stuff, and you'd be like, well, that only gets Harry and Hermione and Ron to graduation. Well, what happens the rest of their life? And I know that in the end of the plot, they fast forward 19 years and you see them having kids, etc. But there's still this like what happened before, what happened afterwards. And so when you had these 3 or even 2 chunks of movies that were spread apart by 20 years, well, what happened? How did Vader go from being 20 years old to 40 years old? Like there's a lot of things that happen in 20 years. And now I always at least wondered, like, well, what happened next after the second Death Star blew up? Which is where I think, because the movies produced in real life were so far apart, like there was 1983 was Return of the Jedi, 1999 was Phantom Menace. So 16 years roughly in there without us knowing how did we get to the original story. Then there was fan fiction, there were comic books, there were novels, like all of these stories not on the big screen, right? But surfaced. And a lot of that then, we talked a couple episodes ago about legends versus canon and how much is real versus how much is not, and all of that sort of thing. I love the interstitial stuff because it explains and makes the movies, in my opinion, so much richer. I think the first 10 minutes of A New Hope is so much richer for having watched Andor and Rogue One that you
Hmm.
see, oh man, all of that led up to this moment. Very cool.
When we were growing up, because we kind of our lives kind of spanned this, right? I was born in 78, you were born in 74, so like you were little when the first ones came out. I wasn't born yet until I remember Return of the Jedi first. So we kind of grew up during the gap in between episode 6 and episode 1. Did you read comics and do the extra? I did not. I didn't pay any attention to the books, the comics, anything extra that was coming out in the in between of that, whatever, 16 years between movies. Did you read and watch stuff during those?
The first thing I remember was Empire Strikes Back. I'm pretty sure I saw Empire Strikes Back the first time in maybe the drive-through. I know I saw Return of the Jedi. Lots of my friends, I mean, I remember talking about it on the playground. I remember after Empire Strikes Back, like, he can't really be his father. Like, we thought like this was fake. It was a lie. It was a plot twist, and they were going to come back in the next movie. And like, just psych, just kidding is not really. And this was the discussion on the playground. A lot of my friends had Star Wars toys, and we would go and we would reenact the Battle of
Mhm.
Hoth and da 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 and all this and that. But then the answer, no. I mean, I never read. I'm still not a comic book guy. I was never a comic
Mhm.
book fan in any way, shape, or form. Didn't read the novels at that point at all. I would say, I mean, I watched the movies over and over again, but I would not say that it, like, let's say 1990, when I was in high school, I wouldn't have called myself a Star Wars fan. I liked Star Wars if somebody had it on TV. Of course, they weren't on TV. You had to go to the video rental store. For those of you of a certain age, we had those. You would walk into a store and rent a movie on a VHS tape. Look it up. I'm sure Wikipedia has a great entry on all of that. But so Yeah, I mean, I was not a complete like Star Wars guy in high school. It wasn't until college and shortly after college when the prequels came out. That was when like, oh man, Star Wars is really cool. And this is hard to think too. If you're younger today than probably 30, maybe ish, like when I was in high school, to love Star Wars would have been like instant nerd status. And it wasn't cool to be a nerd then. Like loving sci-fi and loving superheroes and loving Star Wars, you'd get beaten up after school or in the bathroom for
Mhm.
that, right? Like it was not a cool thing. Like now Star Wars is mainstream, it's super popular, it's super cool. But when I was in high school in 90, it was a 7-year-old movie that was not something that was in the public realm. So no, I did not read all of that stuff. I didn't really start getting into Star Wars until the prequels. Like when those came out, then, also before the prequels came out, there was a theatrical re-release of the original trilogy, which is the ones you watch now because they're fixed and they're
Mhm.
edited and there's some CGI in there and they added some scenes back in. But that was probably really when I started getting invested in Star Wars. And then really it's probably been the last 10 years since with the cartoons and the TV shows. I couldn't tell you when I read the first novel. I don't think I read the first novel. It was the Thrawn series was the first ones I
Mhm.
read. I might be just pre-COVID maybe that I read those. So no, in between I kind of was Star Wars dark, I think.
Okay. I didn't remember you like reading stuff when we were little, but I
No.
wouldn't have known if you did probably. So, yeah. Okay, so back to, Star Wars 101. You say, I have heard you say, I think you've said it on the podcast, that Star Wars is a Western, it's part World War II movie, it's a space opera, it's a little bit samurai film, it's a little film noir, hits of Flash Gordon, but you have said it is not sci-fi. So you want to explain yourself?
It was just, again, somewhat controversial, probably. A lot of people refer to Star Wars as science fiction. As and I love science. Like, put aside Star Wars, I love science fiction. I read a lot of science fiction, probably 80%, not even counting Star Wars books. Probably 80% of my reading is like hardcore sci-fi stuff. Science fiction as a genre, in my opinion, has to have a couple of things involved. Number one, it happens in the future, which Star Wars does not. It tells you right off the bat a long time ago. So therefore, it's not in the future. Now, there is a paradox in Star Wars that the technology is for us in human world futuristic. So you could say, well, it's not in the future, but it feels like it's in the future. Number two is that sci-fi is based in a possible reality. So you go
Mm,
back and you read Isaac Asimov books, you read like old sci-fi, right? Jules Verne, who was dreaming about these fantastic things that did not exist. And now we have them. Like we have these things. And so Star Trek with their data pads, oh man, that would be awesome. Well, you got one in your pocket probably right now, or you got iPads and we got touchscreen computers, et cetera, et cetera. So sci-fi is in the future and it's based on things that could actually happen. Star Wars is not that. It's more space opera, right? It's supposed to be more like fantasy. It's kind of a cross between science fiction, because yes, it's in space, but just because something is in space and has spaceships and laser blasters does not mean that it is science fiction. It is fantasy. It's fantasy set in space. And so it's more like space opera. There's also a lot of things about Star Wars that just cannot ever, like, It's literally impossible to make a lightsaber. You can't control plasma in that way in order to make a lightsaber. When we're watching Star Trek in 1980 or whatever, and you go, wow, a data pad, you could imagine a world where a data pad does exist, right? Like, oh, well, it's just a computer and you can be able to touch the screen. That's not like unrealistic. We couldn't do it or didn't do it at that time. But Star Wars has things in it that just cannot literally ever happen. So I don't think it's sci-fi. I think it's space opera. I think there are science fiction elements. The other thing that Star Wars kind of does and kind of doesn't do that sci-fi definitely does do, or at least good sci-fi, is there's a moral to be told there. There is a conundrum. There's a what do we do if this thing does become possible. You take a look at Star Trek. A lot of Star Trek is we travel to this different world. Now, what's the morality of us interacting with these aliens or with this new life form, or how much do we impose our reality on them? In Star Wars, there's no earthbound humans, so there can be no how would we interact with this sort of thing. Does that make sense? Now, it does, Star Wars does, like good sci-fi, give us a different perspective of a reflection of who society is right now or in the recent past / recent future. Easy example is that, look, the dark side, the empire, it's space Nazis, right? So you go, space Nazis bad. We know Nazis are bad because we lived through World War II 80 years ago, or gosh, was that 80 years ago? Oh my gosh. So, that's in our past. And so it can give us a reflection. It's good sci-fi is like looking in the mirror, and Star Wars can be a lot like that. As far as it being a World War II samurai film noir Flash Gordon, there are direct references, especially in the prequel trilogy, the original trilogy set this all up. When they were editing the first sets of movies, the editors weren't getting it right as far as like space battles and things and sword fights, lightsaber battles. They weren't getting it right as to what George Lucas wanted. So one of the things he did was he took old black and white World War II movies with their dogfight, airplane space battles, cut together sequences, took them into the editing room and said, give me this, but with spaceships. And so and you can find these on YouTube. There's some links on YouTube that actually went scene by scene and compared old World War II movies like side by side with X-Wing battles with TIE fighters. And it's like the exact same shots and the exact same angles. And he was literally just recreating some of these air battles, but in space. Same way with samurai films. He took samurai cuts of old Zurikawa samurai films, etc., and said, give me this. And the stunt performers who were doing the battles were trained by samurai film stunt artists. Like, this is how you should stand and this is how you should move. And if you go deep enough into studying all of the lightsaber forms of battle, there's different forms of combat and etc. They are all based on real samurai forms. Film noir, watch Maul, the most recent series. That is like film noir, right? It's a detective story from trench coats and pencil mustaches all the way down to it, right? And Flash Gordon, especially in the first couple of movies, when George Lucas was growing up, he loved Flash Gordon. There are many direct references to Flash Gordon in especially the original trilogy. So it's an amalgam. And if you're really thinking about it, I don't think you catch it the first watch through. But when you're watching Star Wars, if you're thinking about it, you can watch The Mandalorian, especially the series version, and it's like, oh, I'm watching a Western right now. Yeah, okay, because you see like the shots through the legs and the shootout in the
Mhm.
streets, and sometimes there's the Bad Batch is the same way. You even hear like the music is like old, Western stuff, or you start to think about it, you're like, yeah, I'm watching a space battle. This is a World War II movie. So when you're thinking about it, it's more obvious. I don't think you necessarily get it because you get weighed down in like the technology and laser swords. You're thinking laser swords, you're not thinking samurai, but you know, watch some videos that's like with the green screen without all the background, and they're like, it looks like a samurai fight.
My only pushback is that you say it's not sci-fi because we can't possibly have like lightsabers. And my argument against that is that we just have not yet found the Kyber Crystal Cave. And when we do, then we can have lightsabers. So
Uh,
there you go.
yeah, but yeah, that's true. We have not found a source for kyber crystals, but the kyber that still doesn't solve the we can't. I mean, the kyber crystal doesn't control the length of the plasma blade. It gives its power and its source of energy and the color, but it doesn't control the length of the
Mm,
blade, and that's the problem. I mean, we can make a laser, we can't stop a laser
yeah.
at a specific length, like a plasma laser. It's impossible. Like it's literally physics says we can't do that. Not we can't do that yet. It's we can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Okay, so in the Star Wars universe, for a beginner who is watching, and I think initially my kids got a little bit bogged down in this the first time we watched, and we started in 4, 5, 6, and I think they were confused initially. They were young, but there's a council, there's a senate, there's an admiral, there's a chancellor, there's an emperor, there's uh, you know senators from all over. The question is, like, who is in charge of the light and who is in charge of the dark?
Yeah, so I mean, we got to get a little bit deeper now to answer that question, but I'll try to keep it like 101. All of Star Wars is, you can boil it all down to good guys versus bad guys, period. And I mean guys like gender neutral, right? Like
Mhm.
the good versus
Yeah.
the bad. The problem is in when you start watching all these movies is it gets blurry sometimes, which is again a reflection of life, right? Think about Nazi Germany. Lots of
Mhm.
Germans thought Hitler was great and this was the right thing to do. And then all of a sudden, you do wake up one morning and go, "Well, I don't think this is a good idea," right? So, who's in charge? It also depends on, you got to keep, this is the hardest thing to do, is you have to separate the politics from the religion. And I don't think
Mhm.
from a storytelling mechanism, I don't think Star Wars does that really great. What I do think does it really great is the High Republic novels. I mean, they continually come back with, we're the Jedi, we don't want any part of your politics sort of discussion. They talk a little bit about that in the prequels. Like when you watch the prequels, they go, we don't want to get involved in the Senate. We're not going to do. Now, that doesn't last very long. They jump in pretty quick
Mhm.
because they have to. So, yes, there is a council. I think you mean the Jedi Council. So, the Jedi Council, which is a prequel era construct and before, and that's the highest level of Jedi. They are on a council. That is, for all intents and purposes, a religious body. That is not a political organization. It gets mixed up in politics as, again, religion tends to do. Like here we are in the real world now, right? But the Jedi Council
Right.
is based around the light side. Those are the good guys, and they are sort of in charge of the decision-making body of the entire Jedi. The Senate, which, back up for a second, the Jedi Council essentially dissolves at the end of Revenge of the Sith in the Jedi Purge. There are very few Jedi left
Mhm.
after that. And so there is no council anymore. There's only 2 or 3 or 4 Jedi. There's, Obi-Wan's in hiding, Yoda's in hiding, Luke has been born like 2 seconds ago, etc. So the Jedi Council goes away. It's not available in 4, 5, 6 because there aren't enough Jedi to have a council. In a lot of the same ways, the Senate is the same. So the Senate, like you think about America, every state sends senators to the Capitol and they make laws. That's a political body. The Senate in the galaxy is the same. It is a political body. It's not states from a planet or a country. It's from different worlds. Any world that belongs to the Republic gets a seat or a series of seats in the Senate. The head of the Senate in the prequel era is called the Chancellor. In Phantom Menace, his name is Chancellor Valorum. He gets voted out in that episode 1, and Chancellor Palpatine takes over. He was a senator. He was a senator from Naboo. He becomes Chancellor. That makes him the political head of the Republic, Chancellor Palpatine, who becomes Emperor Palpatine because he takes over and the dark side, blah, blah, blah. Where it becomes fuzzy is when we find out that Chancellor Palpatine, the political head of the Senate, is also a Sith Lord, which the Sith is a religious sect, right? So now you've got a political, it would sort of be like if, well, it's going to make it seem evil. It's probably it's not a direct correlation, but it would sort of be like if we as Americans elected the Pope to be the president. Now the head of, and I'm not saying Catholics are the dark side. I'm not. But, the Pope is the leader of the Catholics. If he was also the leader of American politics or the head of the UN, sort of world politics, now there's a reason we don't do that for obvious reasons. Well, they sort of had that, but they didn't know it. They didn't know, but nobody knew that the head of the Sith was also the head of the Republic Senate. So things got kind of messy right there. And of course, then once all of that took place, he just said, you know what? I'm the emperor. You can't vote me out even if you tried, and etc. So the answer to your question, who's in charge of the light side, who's in charge of the dark side? Essentially, the Jedi Council is in charge of the light side, and Chancellor, Emperor / Palpatine, Darth Sidious, same guy, is in charge of, if you want to look at it that way, the dark side. When you watch the main series of movies, it looks like just Jedi and Sith, and that's it, which is completely simplified. There are a lot of Force users that are neither light side nor dark side. They're middle users, or they are purely religious and they're not looking for power in decision making. So there's a lot of not light and not, it's not just black and white. There are shades of gray in between.
Yeah, it doesn't help matters at all, in my opinion, that so many of them have like double life, multiple name situations. Like, I don't know at what point I realized like Tyrannus was not a separate person from Dooku.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, titles.
Those are the same person. It
Yeah,
took
and
me a
that's
while.
something that happens on the dark side, in the Sith side of the Force. You grow up with your given name. Dooku, that's his name, and he became he's from a powerful ruling family of his planet, so he's Count Dooku. Much like on Earth, you would have a count or a duke or a duchess, etc., etc. You would be a member of a ruling or royal or rich, important family, so he's Count Dooku. He's also a Sith, so he gets a Sith name, which his Sith name is Darth Tyrannus. Tyrannus is a given name. Darth is a title. Darth is like Count. Tyrannus is a chosen name, or a name that was given to you or as a part of your dark side rebirth. So when you're a Sith but don't want anyone to know, you're going to mostly go by Count Dooku, for instance, not walk. I mean, you wouldn't walk around if you don't want people to know you're a Sith Lord. You don't go around saying, "Call me Darth Tyrannus," because that's a signal that, oh, by the way, like I'm a dark side. I'm a dark side Sith. Sort of makes it obvious. So then in the movies, yeah, I mean, Emperor Palpatine, Darth Sidious. He wasn't going around saying, "Call me Darth Sidious," because he didn't want anybody to know he was also a Sith Lord. That was sort of in hiding. It was subterfuge. I always thought when the original trilogy, talk about confusing, the original trilogy was the only thing always confused me. Like, why are the stormtroopers, who are the bad guys, they work for the Empire, why do they wear white? The black hat in the old westerns, the black hat's always the bad guy, and the white hat is always the sheriff, right? So, but like, why do? Well, that's one of the thing that the prequel era answers is because they started out as the good guys, right?
Well, and Darth Vader is all dark, black hood, helmet, cloak, and a lot of the others in that are darker. The Palpatine is always hooded and, cloaked
Yeah, I mean,
and
there's
whatever. So,
definite
yeah.
intentional imagery.
All right, so finally, to wrap things up, sort of, we've talked about some of these before on previous episodes, but at the end of your interviews of other people, you ask some rapid fire favorite kind of things, and I am going to restrict you to only the 9 movies. So I'm going to ask you some, rapid fire favorites, but nine main movies only. Who is your favorite Jedi?
Now, this made it hard because I've done this before, but I've never done it only the 9 movies. I've always done Star Wars universe. So I actually did have to think about this quite a bit. So favorite Jedi, I think I'm going Yoda. It's hard not to say Yoda. Honorable mention to maybe Mace Windu and Qui-Gon, but I'm going Yoda.
All right. Favorite bad guy in general.
Oh, gotta be Vader. Gotta be Vader. Vader's just like a total bad.
All right. All right. Favorite force user. I'll even give you force sensitive for this one.
Yeah, I can't think of anybody. Maybe help me out. I can't think of anybody in the 9 movies that I would consider force sensitive, but not a Jedi or Sith. Did you have somebody in mind?
I mean, I would say Leia is force sensitive, but not a Jedi. So I guess I was picturing more newer movies. It seems like some people are more sensitive, but not directly Jedi.
So we could argue that, like in the prequel era, she's doesn't exist. In the original trilogy,
Hmm.
we never get a hint really that she's force sensitive. In the sequels, she's got a lightsaber and she has done Jedi training. She hasn't completed it. She is not a Jedi. I guess she would be force sensitive. I guess she would be a force user. I went a little different route. I went Qui-Gon Jinn. Qui-Gon is a Jedi. He's
Okay.
definitely a Jedi. But what I love most about Qui-Gon is I think of all of the Jedi in the 9 movie series, he's the one most closely connected to the Force the way a Jedi should be. And I become more
Yeah.
convinced of that as I read The High Republic, where the Jedi are truly connected to the Force the way they should be. Like Qui-Gon was old school throwback Jedi, believing in the Force the way a Jedi should. I don't think there's anybody else in those 9 movies that does that. So I'm going Qui-Gon.
I can appreciate that. I agree about the High Republic novels that you see this sense of like the force being this flowing thing between everything, and so it's a very different feel. Yeah. All right. Favorite droid in the 9 movies.
Yeah, gotta be R2. I mean, gotta
I
be R. He's in all 9 movies. That first of all, C3PO is also, but he's C3PO.
Nah.
I mean, like, tell me one more time that you know 9 million languages, right? I always wondered, like, what if? What if at some point in our saga, our 9 movie saga, the Empire had been smart enough to change the data ports in their ships? Like, different end to the story, because R2D2 is in the first movie and the 9th movie, and I think in every movie and probably every TV show, he accesses the data port clicks in and he makes the elevators move and he
Spins
closes doors.
around.
He does
Yeah.
the little spinny thing. Like, if the Empire had just been controlled by Apple that changes interface all of the time, I don't know. The Empire might have won. So yeah, R2 all day. He's the greatest.
R2 would have had to pull out a box of adapters to,
That's right. He would
figure out
need an
which
Empire
ending.
issued dongle or something.
Right, right. All right, favorite hero. This is a little different than Jedi, just straight up hero. Anybody.
Yeah, we could debate. I'm going to go Han. I don't know that he is
Okay.
a hero. I mean, he's a scoundrel for sure, but he always
Yeah, but he's a hero.
He always ends up doing the heroic thing. He dies a hero's death. He comes back and saves them time and time again. He says he's in it for the money. He never really shows that. So I just love Han. One of the best, one of the favorites.
Yep. And favorite actor or actress.
I think I'm going Harrison Ford. And probably because I love so many of the things he is in as an actor. American Graffiti, Indiana Jones, Air Force One. I mean, the list could go on. He's in so many of the movies. Plus, I guess Harrison Ford isn't in Solo because it was a different actor. But I just love Harrison Ford. I would like to say Carrie Fisher, because I think early on, late 70s, her and Sigourney Weaver are like women breaking into sci-fi as the heroic character. But as an actress, she's not really in that much other stuff. She was in Blues Brothers, but it's sort of a cameo in Blues Brothers, and not that great of a character. And I will give an honorable mention, though, also to Samuel L. Jackson, because he is one bad mother. However, the dialogue writing for his character is so pathetic that even Samuel L. Jackson can't save it. So, Harrison Ford.
Yeah. What's your favorite scene in the 9 movies?
I'm going to go the death of Yoda in Return of the Jedi. I think that he gives, it's such a cool way to give exposition. That's the scene where he confirms that Darth Vader is Luke's father. So there's that confirmation. He gives him a bunch of information there. And also as a father, not so much in today, but 16 years ago, when it's like, why daddy, why daddy, why daddy? There are times where I just wanted to roll over and die. And I think part of, that was Luke right there, like prod. I think part of what killed Yoda was just like, enough questions. If I die, he'll stop asking me questions. So favorite scene.
All right. Favorite quote.
Repetitive here, but anything Yoda says, right? Do or do not, there is no try, is a great one. I think that's probably at the top of the list, but I don't know. I love Yoda and the way his speech patterns, even in the sequel trilogy, he has some great lines as a force ghost with Luke. Page turners they were not, when he's talking about the Jedi texts. And Yoda. Anything Yoda says.
Okay. And your favorite obscure Star Wars fact from the 9 movies.
In today's day and age, I'm not sure there are any obscure facts.
Internet.
I guess if you're new to Star Wars, this is obscure. But I think my favorite one is at the end of The Empire Strikes Back, when Vader says, "I am your father." There were very, very few people that knew that was the line. Most people know that Darth Vader's voice is James Earl Jones. And that was not put in till well after the fact. James Earl Jones went in after those movies and spent like literally just an hour. He recorded all of the lines for each of those movies in like an hour. The original line that the actor, David Prowse, is the guy in the Vader costume. The line he delivers to Luke, that the crew, and he said it's in the script, was, "Obi-Wan killed your father." So that was what the actor said. And right before they did that scene, the director, Ivan Kershner, pulled Mark Hamill aside and said, "By the way, he's going to say Obi-Wan killed your father, but But what he is going to say when we release it is, I am your father, so that Luke would react in the right way. And they told nobody. In fact, when James Earl Jones went in to record it, he was like, this can't be right. Seriously? Do you want me to say this? Because the original script he got said Obi-Wan killed your father. And they didn't give him the right script, so they really kept it under wraps. In fact, I don't think anybody except like 4 or 5 people knew until the movie came out.
It's hard to believe that something was kept kept that close to the vest. I can't imagine that happens much today.
Well, there was no YouTube
So,
or Reddit in
right.
1980,
Right.
in the early 80s.
All right. In wrapping up, the challenge to you is rank the trilogies. And for this one, we're going to say there's the original trilogy, 4, 5, and 6. There's the prequel trilogy, 1, 2, and 3. There's the sequel, 7, 8, and 9. And then we're going to call it the standalones. And that trilogy I'm going to call Rogue One, Solo, and Mando Grogu, which just came out. So maybe that informs your opinion. So I'm giving you 4 trilogies. What's your favorite? What's your least favorite? Where do you put them?
Yeah, I think this was really easy. I think I'm going to go. My favorite is original trilogy. You have all of the original characters being introduced. You have the music of John Williams. You have great musical themes. You have all of the basic elements of Star Wars. Yes, you have some very old movie making things, and there's some stuff that's not great about those movies. There's definitely some things I don't like, but the great outweighs the not great in my opinion. So that is the top of the list. At the bottom of I'll go bottom of the list. I'm going to keep you in suspense in the middle. The bottom of the list is the sequel trilogy. That's my least favorite. Now, yes, the CGI is the best, but I think there's a lot of issues with those. And actually, I like The Force Awakens. That is a really good movie. It's in my top 5. So if it was just that movie, this would be different. But man, there's a lot to not like in the sequel trilogy. Next up is going to be the prequels. There's a lot of awful in the prequels. There's a lot of ick in the prequels. But man, you also get the fall of Anakin, and I personally like some of the trade talks because I think that's how actually wars get started. I think it's a very realistic way to start the Clone Wars. You get a lot of great music in there. The CGI is really beautiful, even though it's a little old-fashioned because of the time of those movies. But maybe it's going to shock some people. My number 2 is going to be the standalones. I think Rogue One is my second favorite Star Wars movie. I go Empire and Rogue, and it's close. I love Rogue One, and I love Rogue One more now that we have Andor backing it up. I think those 3 things together, season 1, season 2 of Andor, and Rogue One, might be the greatest chunk of Star Wars ever. If you had made that a trilogy, that would be on top for me. Absolutely. I don't care if there's no lightsabers in it. I don't care. It is awesome. Solo has so many good moments for me. There's a lot of, there were some director issues and there's some timing and beat issues, but it's a really fun movie. Mando and Grogu, the third act drags for me a lot. But again, there's so many fun, good, it's an enjoyable movie. So I'm going original trilogy first, standalones second, followed by the prequels, and then on fourth base, the sequels.
How many times have you seen the Mando Grogu movie so far?
Twice.
All right.
I saw it on opening weekend and then a week or 2 after. So
I saw it once opening weekend, but haven't seen it again since that. So I'm waiting for it to release to streaming. So
do you agree with that rank or no?
Yeah, mostly. I could probably interchange the prequel and sequel. Those feel very, I can see your way of putting it. If you had put it the other way, I wouldn't have been surprised either. I do much prefer the standalone movies to the prequel and sequel. So I also would have moved that up above those.
Not if you tell me I could only ever watch one Star Wars thing, I would pick Rogue One. Well, I don't know. Can I pick the Clone Wars animated,
I was gonna
all of
say
it
we're not going. Oh, if we're
as
including
one thing?
animated in that, that's a different thing.
If I could only
Yeah,
pick one
so
movie to watch for the rest of my life,
might be
boy,
Rogue One.
yeah, probably, but it'd be tough. I
Yeah,
love Empire Strikes Back. I don't
I
care that
know.
it's 40 something years old. I love that movie. It is, I mean, it's where Star Wars became Star Wars to me.
Yep.
It's got the jokes, it's got the banter, it's got better lightsaber battles. You know, there's only one in A New Hope. It lasts
Hmm.
like a minute and a half, and it's two guys that are 60 years old. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not a great battle. So like to me, Empire Strikes Back was where Star Wars started knowing what it was. It's a
Hmm.
little bit of comedy, it's a little bit of drama, it's mostly space battles and lightsabers and dark side versus light side. And that to me is where Star Wars found who it is. And so
Hmm.
it's just, I don't know, it's just perfect to me. And you get Yoda for the very first time. Before we go, we would be remiss if we didn't remind everybody that on the podcast in general, we are going through release order in order. So we started way back almost a year ago, hard to believe, right? With A New Hope, and we did an episode on New Hope, and we're kind of going through right now. We are deep into season 3/4 of the Clone Wars, but you can go back and find more about Star Wars in depth details in previous episodes of the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. If YouTube is your choice, you can go to our YouTube channel, which is at Robert H. Sloan, RHS Music. It's got Sid as the avatar logo, and you can find our playlist, which is a Star Wars episode playlist, which gives you only the Star Wars episodes of the podcast, because of course they're intermingled with some other stuff. So check that out at Robert H. Sloan, RHS Music, or just dig through old episodes on your favorite podcast platform. Kathy, thanks for being here today. That was a great set of questions and good discussions. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Got your DCI questions ready?
I am all set, man. I'm ready. I'm all for talking about Star Wars, but I am new to DCI. So when I say we are doing basics on DCI, I mean basics to me too. So
Yeah,
let's
you
do it.
probably didn't learn much today,
Not
but I
too
think
much.
you might learn something on the DCI chat. So
Yep.
we'll,
This
we'll
was
see
fun.
you in a couple. Yeah, we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks for having me.
That's it. No, no, no. Breathe on your happy place.
Cell phone nonsense. I, like a lot of people, enjoy playing games on my phone. It's quick, it's easy, it's distracting. Long wait at the doctor's office? Play a quick game. Movie your son is watching got boring? Play a game. Puzzle games are my jam. I love the sort the liquid, find the word, solve the puzzle type games. That's where I gravitate. What do I love most about this? Solve the puzzle, get the dopamine hit. Solve the riddle, sort the liquid, find the word, solve the puzzle. I love it. Get that quick shot of dopamine, makes you feel good, right? But why do I also need to earn the coins to get the shovels to be able to dig for the treasure to get some extra coins so that I can get the extra hint to help me solve the puzzle? Why do I need to climb the ladder to earn the cards to complete the set and win a special star? Why do I need to join the side quest to be the first to cross the pond for additional coins, to get the shovels, to dig for the treasure? Dude, I just want to sort the colorful liquid. I just want to solve the word game. I just want to get the blocks out of the maze. Isn't solving the puzzle enough of a dopamine hit? Why do I need all the other stuff? And before you say, just avoid the side conflicts, sometimes you can't. They force it on you, or at least there's seconds of flashy animation and flying stars and trophies and shovels and things flashing on. I know it's all meant to keep me in the game, in their app, watching their ads. I get it. But you know what? You know what would keep me in their game longer? Less nonsense. Just let me solve the puzzle and move on to level 2575, and I'll maybe never leave. What makes me swipe out of the app most often? the stupid nonsense. I feel better. You feel better? I need to go sort some liquid. Homework for the week. A selfish one this week, if you'll please indulge me. Usually these are about you. Well, today it's about us. It's about symbols and cynicism, and it's your choice of assignments. You can tell 5 friends about the show. Share our link with them. Share our YouTube channel on your social media. Like our Facebook and TikTok pages and share those pages. It's all free. You don't have to do anything. Just share and tell somebody. Or subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform and also on YouTube and TikTok. It's funny how algorithms work. It really is. The more people that like and subscribe on YouTube or TikTok or wherever, YouTube or TikTok now thinks, oh, people like this. And so they push that content out to a more wide variety of people. It's weird, but it works. So a simple like, a simple subscribe, a simple share, it's a click. Again, that's free. Or for bonus credit, do both. Help us out, like, share, subscribe, tell 5 friends, and make sure they know that if the early episodes sound bad, it does get better. Remember, Vietnam loves us, and maybe your friends will too. Okay, that's the show. Make sure to leave a rating, drop a comment, or send a message on the app of your choice. You can text the show with a link at the bottom of the description. Check out our merch store at themarchingarts.com/RHS and our YouTube channel at Robert H. Sloan, RHS Music. I hope you'll join us next week for our 1-year Sid-iversary and rumors, lies, and hearsay. Thanks for joining me today. The theme music is Superfly, written by me, copyright RHS Music. The show logo is designed by John Suh, and the show is produced by my sister, Kathy. I hope you'll join us next time for more reflections and rantings on symbols and cynicism.